So talk about that core operating profit declining. It's really something that you discussed with CNBC before the last time you came on, higher raw material prices, distribution cost. Did you see that it was somewhat exacerbated in the latest quarter because of trade policy related uncertainty?
Yes. I think that there was some impact of the increased material cost in the fourth quarter, but it was not as bad as we expected because the result for our fourth quarter result was better than expected, was better than planned. So overall, I think that the impact from the material cost has been coming down a little bit. That mainly, and also Japanese yen has been appreciating, so which has a positive impact to our Japanese procurement.
And was there a tariff-related decision, some sort of a pause in your shipments to the U.S.? And did you gain a lot of confidence from the announcement from the U.S. and China in terms of making some progress on the trade front?
Yeah. So in terms of the tariffs, fortunately, impact of the tariff is relatively limited for our U.S. business, as we produce majority of products locally in the U.S., and the import of the finished good products is quite limited. And while other U.S. companies import many finished products from overseas countries, and we have included the impact of so-called IEEPA tariff for China, which is 20% in this fiscal year's budget, and the impact is only a few $1 million. So based on this assumption, our plan for this fiscal year is to keep growing both revenue and profit, even under this difficult environment, and to achieve another record high figures for both revenue and profit for fiscal year 2025.
Yano-san, Martin here. Let me quickly jump in with a question. I know that you're pretty broadly spread across a lot of geographies in the world, including the United States. With the tariffs, does Nissin have any intention of increasing manufacturing capacity in the United States to try and adapt to the tariffs?
Yes, the reason why we are going to establish a new factory is to cope with the increasing demand in the U.S. market, because we have successfully grew in the U.S. market, and we have doubled our sales in the last 3 years. And also we see increase in the demand in the U.S. market. And historically, we have been producing our products locally. So our basic strategy is to produce locally. So that strategy has not changed. But the reason for a new production facility is simply to cope with the increasing demand in the U.S. market.
Okay, that's actually good to know. So you're actually pretty well insulated if you produce in the U.S. for the U.S. market, and similarly, right. I think would be the case for let's say China. But let's talk about supply chain disruptions. That is obviously something you still have to manage, and with war in Ukraine now into its third year, your instant noodles, which incidentally I survived on them through college, right? Are wheat-based, if I'm not mistaken, right? And with the war in Ukraine, how's that affected your supply chain for wheat itself? Have you managed to pivot or adapt and find wheat from other sources at maybe cheaper prices?
In Japan, the price of the wheat is determined by the government, because the majority of the wheat is imported by the Japanese government. Most recently, thanks to the appreciation of Japanese yen, overall wheat cost has been coming down, so which has a positive impact to overall our profit. So, and we estimate that the wheat price is not going up that much. So overall, the increase of material cost is not from the wheat, but for the palm oil and other package and oil, and also more oil-related products.
I know that your numbers, your overall performance, it definitely has some influence from global sales, but zooming in onto the Japanese side of things, how what is the gauge that you're getting of Japanese consumer sentiment? Because they are really trying to get adjusted, get used to this new inflationary regime in the country. Was there anything interesting in terms of takeaway from Japanese consumers?
Yeah. So we have seen the increase of the wage for the past 2 years, which is a positive impact to the consumers. But on the other hand, inflation is the kind of biting the increase of the wage. So consumers is a kind of hesitant to go into more pricey products. So that is why we have been trying to induce people from the relatively affordable products into more premium type pricey products. But it has not made big success. So we are waiting to see how consumer will react. And at the same time, in Japan, the price of rice is rising quite rapidly. So we expect that people will shift from rice into more bread or instant noodle like us. So that may accelerate the sales of the instant noodle in Japanese market.
You know, we had some chats around rice prices going up in Japan, and whether this is going to be part of this trade tariff negotiations between the U.S. and Japan in recent days as well. What would be really the crucial factor that you'll be watching out for in terms of how the U.S. and Japan progress with their tariff negotiations? And do you see, I guess, number one, rice being included, and number two, what is the level of tariffs, perhaps, that you can work with and live with?
Yeah. So in terms of tariffs, as I mentioned earlier, we are not affected by the tariff because in most of the countries, we produce and also we procure locally. So we are less affected by the tariff. So we are not overly concerned about the situation of the tariff issues between U.S. and Japan, and also between U.S. and China. So, of course, on the other hand, the majority of, say, U.S. companies are affected because they import majority of products from the overseas countries. So, which means that other companies may increase the price. And in that case, we may be able to increase our price as well, while not increasing our material cost, which has a positive impact to our profit.